Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Felicia Clerk. I'm the Director for the Office of Research and Sponsor Programs. Today, the Office of Research and Sponsor Programs will be presenting information about the new NIH policy for data management and sharing and what you need to know and the resources here on campus. I ask that you reserve your questions for the question and answer portion, and also you can email me directly at fclerk@umc.edu or at sponsorprograms@umc.edu, or you can enter your questions in the chat and we'll answer those for you. If I'm unable to provide an answer for you, I will reach back out to you and make sure that you have an answer to your question. And also, this presentation will be uploaded to the NIH DMSP resource portion of the ORSP website, so it will be available for you after this presentation. So we'll just go ahead and get started. And I appreciate all of you guys for attending today as well. And anybody else who you may know that may be in research and preparing a proposal, you can send them our way, and we're happy to provide a resource for them regarding this new plan. Just to start off with the introduction, the 2023 NIH Data Management and Sharing Policy is new for NIH submissions. So the policy requires that all NIH funded research describe in detail how scientific data will be managed and shared in a usable format. Data is also required to be preserved within a specialized repository. This information is to be provided within a newly formatted 2-page document known as the Data Management and Sharing Plan in your research proposals and in your grant applications. So that's the reason for this workshop today, to provide that information for you. That particular policy and notice, it is effective January 25th for submissions on or after January 25th, 2023. And that notice, the specific notice for this new policy is notice OD 21013. So the reason for the policy, anybody who has ever submitted to NIH is all about sharing and not duplicating. So they're wanting to make data more available to individuals. So what does data sharing do? Data sharing enables researchers to rigorously test and validate research findings, and strengthens analysis through combined data sets, reuse hard to generate data, and explore new frontiers. NIH also encourages data management and data sharing practices also available. I would encourage everybody to get familiar with the fair data principles. We have a ton of information out there on our website. I'm going to be getting into that later on the resources that are available for you on our website as well. And we're updating constantly as new information is provided by NIH, workshops, and samples as well. So let's get down to what are the requirements for the NIH data management, for your NIH data management and sharing plan. So it's a 2-page document in Forms H that was recently released here for new proposals. The submission is a 2-page data management plan. So there are specific elements that are required for this particular attachment, that we will provide samples for you from our ORSP office, and they are available as well on NIH. The same examples, these are provided by NIH. So these are the go-to plans that we encourage that you use as a template to guide you in your data sharing and management plan, compiling it together. So the compliance part of this plan is, once your plan is approved, it becomes part of your terms and conditions of your award. So it is important that we're listing that in this, our office will review this information as well. It is important that we're putting in realistic information. However, NIH for this year, NIH will allow post-award revisions throughout the award to this plan. But your two main takeaways is that it's a two-page document, not to go over 2 pages, and that we are compliant with the approved plan. And if you ever need to make post-award revisions to your DMSP, ORSP is here to help you facilitate those revisions to your DMSP. And as a note, I know that we may have some training grant submissions as well. This only applies to grant applications that will generate scientific data. Now, NIH does not, they don't hammer this down as far as scientific data. They describe scientific, they are describing scientific data that applies to all research that's funded or conducted in whole by NIH. They leave it kind of broad, but this plan is not required for any trainings, fellowships, construction grants, conference grants, resource grants, or any research-related infrastructure grants. So our office will let you know if that DMSP is required for your grant when you're submitting. Just be aware, if you're submitting for R01, R21, and those normal parent grants and any specialized art grant, the DMSP will be required for that grant. Just to reiterate, it's a two-page plan. And you'll also be allowed to put costs in your budget for that. I'll get into that later about what allowable costs that you're allowed to add into your budgets. Even if you're using a modular budget template, you'll be able to add a cost in there for data management and data sharing. During the just-in-time phase, you'll receive feedback as normal when they request other support documents and your ICOOC or human, your IRB approvals. In the just-in-time phase, they'll also start providing feedback regarding your DMSP and allow us to make revisions and updates and updates to the plan. So the DMSP will be in effect the life of the award. And like I keep saying, they will allow post-award modifications throughout the life of the award. If anything changes on how you need to share or anything like that, and ORSP is here to help facilitate that. When do you need to share the data? You will be required to share the data no later than publication or the end of the award, including the first no-cost extension for any unpublished data. You may ask, how long do I have to keep this data around? At a minimum, it's 3 years. This is the NIH policy, not the institutional policy. The NIH policy is that they're requiring awardees at least 3 years following closeout of the award or grant or contract to share and maintain that data. The assessment of the data management and sharing plan. It will not be peer reviewed, meaning you will not receive a score for this plan. The DMS plans are not part of your review criteria for the funding opportunity announcement. The NIH program staff will review your plan to make sure it's acceptable. And like I said, you can request modifications depending on any changes in your department or institution or in the institution or anything like that. We can facilitate those changes. And the plans must be approved by your funding institute prior to the award. In the just-in-time review part, if they request any revisions or any clarifications, we'll be here as always to provide that along with your other support and any other ICOOC approvals or anything like that. Talked a little bit about this before about scientific data. What is considered scientific data? Here is the broad definition that the NIH provided. Recorded factual material commonly accepted in the scientific community as necessary to validate, replicate research findings, regardless of where the data are used to support scholarly publication. It does not include your laboratory notebooks, any preliminary analysis, peer reviews, or any communications with your colleagues, physical objects, or any laboratory specimen. So they use a broad term for scientific data. I am hopeful that in the future, as this plan is required before the end of the year, they will kind of nail down exactly, get a little bit more detailed about the scientific data portion and what they're requiring. As I stated before, in the plan requires several elements, about six elements to make your plan complete. You must include a data type, related tools and software code, standards, data preservation, access and distribution, and reuse considerations, and oversight of the data management plan. All of this information is available on the ORSP website along with samples. As far as data type, you will have to identify the estimated type and amount of data that this is as I'm gonna highlight here, estimated type and amount of data to be generated. Of course, we know that these are proposals going in. You may not be exactly sure about the amount of data that will be generated. That is the reason for the post-submission modifications that you can make during the just-in-time phase. Which data to be preserved also goes into preserved and shared in the data type. Also, the accompanying metadata and other relevant data associated with the documentation to be made available during sharing. Any related tools, software, or code to access and manipulate the data. What type of tools or software will you be using? Also, the standards, if there will be applied to the scientific data associated with any metadata, data formatting, data dictionaries, or anything like that, include those standards in that plan as well. Data preservation and access associated with the data timelines. So how will you be preserving the data? NIH has an extensive list of repositories that you can use to house your data, or else you can house your data maybe how you've been using it, like maybe RedCap or some other system, homegrown system that UMC has here that you can use to preserve your data and access it later. How do you plan to distribute the data, access, distribution, and reuse considerations of your data? Basically describing the factors potentially affecting the data access, or the reuse related to informed consent or privacy and confidentiality protections. And we'll get more into the human subjects part of that, the oversight of that, and describe how compliance with the DMSP will be monitored and managed. I am currently customizing a section for you guys to put in this section, just stating overall for the institution, on the institution's behalf and the department, and how we will collaborate to make sure that we are being compliant with the data management plan and the appropriate oversight with the institution, the overall institution and the departments. Just a little note here, the data management responsibilities extend beyond the principal investigators or the researchers. It extends to the institution as a whole. So various parties are involved: the Office of Research and Sponsor Programs, the General Counsel Office, the Office of Integrity and Compliance. All of us are working together to make sure we are compliant with the new NIH policy, and making sure that the investigators remain compliant with the submitted data management and sharing plan that they submitted and that has been approved by NIH. Data preservation and access. There's an extensive list. I will make this presentation available for you so that you'll have access to the link below in selecting a repository. An important factor in remembering is that you all apply for NIH. Certain institutes and centers, they may require you now to deposit into their repository, but we'll be looking at those specific centers and institutes, which will require you to deposit your data in their repository. So we'll be looking into that before you apply, and then making the necessary, giving you the necessary information to add to your plans. Budgeting for data management and sharing. So I'm going to share with you now the allowable costs that NIH describes. I'm in the process as of, I hadn't got a list of any of costs for your data, an exact cost like a spreadsheet or anything, but this is a pending institutional spreadsheet for you to use for adding to your budgets and budget justifications. Just as a reminder, I know that modular budgets are very easy to use. However, now if you're adding any budgeting for data management and sharing, which we do encourage, you will have to add a line in your, you'll have to add a justification, a clear justification for that data management and sharing in your modular budget if you're using a modular budget template. So this is a list of, this is not an extensive list of, not well, exclusive list of all the costs, but this is what has been provided by NIH based on the policy, the allowable costs for data management and sharing. They will allow costs for curating data, developing supporting documentation, de-identifying data, preparing your metadata, local data management considerations will can be paid for, infrastructure necessary to provide local management and preservation of your data, preserving and sharing your data through established repositories, such as data deposit fees. Those are now allowable, along with, like I said, just justifying it in your, creating a line item for it in your budget, and also providing a clear justification for it in your budget justifications. And then, of course, in the just-in-time phase, if they have more questions, we'll be here to ask for clarification and make sure that is provided so that you may receive that funding for that data management and sharing. A little note, all allowable costs submitted in the budget request must be incurred during the performance period, even for scientific data and metadata preserved and shared beyond the award period. So that means that you're only allowed all the allowable costs, you must submit those during the performance period of the grant or award, nothing outside of that. Unallowable costs are infrastructure costs, basically facilities and administrative costs, things that fall into that category. I'm going to say institutional overhead. They will not fund those type of costs. Costs associated with the routine conduct of research. They won't pay for those costs as well. And we won't, and there will not be, of course, we're going to remain compliant, no double charging or inconsistent charging with both direct and indirect costs. The data management and sharing justification, as I stated before, it must be clear and detailed. You'll provide a brief summary of the type and amount of data, estimate the estimated amount of scientific data to be preserved and shared, and name the established repository if you're going to be depositing into a repository where they will be preserved and shared. Indicate any general costs, such as the curating of data, as I stated before, and that supporting documentation, and include the amount for each category and a brief explanation. We ask that you be detailed as possible, because we know that the more detail that you provide, the clearer it is for your reviewer, especially on the budget piece, for them to go ahead and approve that. The recommended length for this justification should be no more than a half a page. Again, all of this is coming from NIH. This is their recommendation for the justification piece for the data in your budget justification. Post-award monitoring and oversight. The NIH approved plan becomes a term and condition of your notice of award, meaning that whatever we have submitted in the proposal stage, it will become a part of your notice of award. It'll probably more than likely be down at the near the end of your notice of award that you agree to that term and condition, which includes your approved data management and sharing plan. Principal investigators must provide updates on the data management and sharing activities in your annual RPPRs and your annual progress reports. If you plan to change over the course of the project, we can talk with the program officer and obtain a review and approval of that modification. So this goes back to your post-award modifications of that plan. We are here to help facilitate that and help get that plan approved for you through communicating with the program official and routing it through the grants management specialist. Also, a little note here I put at the bottom that while the data management plan are the responsibilities will require team effort, the principal investigators are ultimately responsible for ensuring that the DMS is properly executed in a timely and accurate manner. So just keep that in the forefront of your mind as you're writing your plans and making sure that they are feasible and making sure that they are compliant with the NIH with the new NIH policy. The flexibility of the DMS plan, it does not create a uniform requirement to share all scientific data. A lot of the information that was in the draft policy, the ethical, legal, and technical parts of it, it has different variations to the extent of scientific data preservation and sharing for researchers. So we're just we're conveying what I'm conveying today to you, exactly what the policy states and what we'll have to comply with for the different funding opportunities, and providing some samples on what the requirements are, what your plan will look like, and how we have to be compliant with this policy going forward. And I would just like to reiterate, it's not an option to not provide the plan. We'll need to provide the plan in every submission that goes out on or after January 25th. Here are a few NIH. I didn't receive any questions from anybody. However, after this presentation, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'll have your questions in the chat, and I'll add those to a facts part here in this presentation and answer those later and make sure that they are available for you on the website as well. Here are a few NIH facts that I'm guessing they encountered during the committee review session of the policy. So the first question was regarding secondary data. If researchers are reusing existing shared data to generate new data sets, are they expected to reshare the primary data they incorporated into their new analysis? The DMS policy applies to research that results in the generation of data. Scientific data can result from secondary research, but researchers are not expected to share the existing shared primary data to conduct the secondary research. So basically, the data that you generate from the use of the secondary data has to be shared, not the secondary data that you have requested, because you already have access to it and it's already out there, already out in the world. Limiting data sharing. I guess they have prepared themselves for maybe any excuses that we may provide as far as limiting the sharing of data. What are justifiable reasons for limiting the sharing of data? NIH expects that researchers will take steps to maximize data sharing, but recognize that certain factors, of course, ethical, legal, and technical, may necessitate limiting sharing. Anticipated limitations should be described in the plan. You still have to provide a plan. You still have to provide that in your plan. Potential factors include, but are not limited to, informed consent will not permit or will limit the scope or the extent of sharing and future research use. Existing consent prohibits sharing. Privacy or safety of research participants. Explicit federal, state, local, or tribal law regulations that prohibit disclosure. Restrictions imposed by existing or anticipated agreements with third-party funders, repositories, or with any HIPAA covered entities that provide protected health information. Data sets cannot practically be digitized with reasonable efforts. Those are just a few, but you'll still have to provide a plan that has this information in there describing why you are unable, why you're limited, why your data sharing is limited, and they'll have to be approved by NIH. Does the timeline for sharing scientific data change in the event of a no-cost extension? So basically, your scientific data should be made accessible as soon as possible and no later than the associated publication or end of performance of your award that generated the data. If a no-cost extension is granted, your scientific data should be accessible no later than the time associated with publication or the end of the no-cost extension. So that is whichever comes first. I know that kind of reads like VCR instructions or instructions, but you want to make sure that you're sharing your data either at the end of your no-cost extension, or you're sharing your data before no later than the time of your associated publication. No later than the time of your associated publication. The next question, which steps does the DMSP take to ensure institutions and researchers protect research participants? Award recipients must comply with applicable laws, regulations, statutes, guidance, or institutional policies. So we're going to adhere to all state of Mississippi laws. We're also going to adhere to the institutional policies here regarding data sharing to protect participants' privacy. The DMSP encourages respect for participants by encouraging researchers and award recipients to address any data management and sharing plans during the informed consent process to ensure prospective participants understand how their data will be managed and shared. Outline steps that you'll take for protecting the privacy rights and confidentiality of your prospective participants, either through de-identifications, certificates of confidentiality, and any other protective measures. Also, we'll assess the limitations on subsequent use of data and communicate these limitations to the individuals or entities, your repository, if you're using a repository, about preserving and sharing the data. Consider whether access to the shared scientific derived data from humans should be controlled or even de-identified, and lacking explicit limitations on subsequent use. Sharing via controlled access may be specified by certain funding opportunity announcements or funding NIH institutes or centers and offices. So we'll be paying particular attention to whether or not, if you request or if you're awarded by a specific agency, what their requests are as far as your data management and sharing plan. Are they requesting your data to be uploaded or in a specific repository or something of that nature? How will non-compliance with the NIH DMSP be handled? So NIH will be monitoring compliance of the plans through the progress reports, of your award. So non-compliance with the plan can result in adding special conditions to your terms, to your award, to your terms and conditions of your award. And what we all don't want to hear is the termination of your award. So it's important to be compliant with your DMSP and communicate with ORSP if you need to make those modifications. Even if you foresee modifications to your DMSP, just let our office know. We'll communicate with the GMS, your grants management specialist, and your program officer to make sure we're submitting a revised plan as soon as you are aware of any changes that you may need to make, so we can make sure we're staying within the guidelines of an approved plan. How will compliance with the DMSP be handled? If the award recipients are not complying with the plans at the end of the award, non-compliance may be factored into funding decisions in the future. So to avoid these issues, to avoid potential issues when reporting progress, ensure that the DMSP contains sufficient details for your program officer to be able to evaluate your compliance. So we're going to make sure in your RPPRs, updated RPPRs, that we're including this information in there and providing the reviewers of your progress report with the most accurate, detailed information, and with any foreseeable we will have communicated this already, but with any foreseeable modifications to that plan. As I stated before, I will make this presentation available because these are the NIH resources here about data management. They're providing supplemental information as far as the elements to include sample plans, and also they have a long list of repositories and selecting a repository and generalist repositories to upload your data. And I'll be making this available for you so you can have all these links. All these links are active and they take you directly to the information regarding the DMSP. UMC resources, we also have access to the DMP tool. I've actually been in and I tried this myself. It is I did a mock walkthrough of the DMSP tool here. You don't have to, you can sign up for an account. I actually signed up for an account. You can create your plan using this DMP tool. It's a free tool to help researchers with the data management and sharing plan. I know NIH is enacting this now for future submissions that start on January, that are due on or after January 25th. However, we are in the research community, will think that this will become a part of every grant submission, not just NIH. We all know that a lot of the funding agencies follow NIH's guidance and what they're doing. So we can foresee that this will be a requirement in the future. And this tool, the DMP tool, is a great and helpful tool to help you walk you through the data management plan, and then you can print it right off of here and add it into your grant application in Assist or grants.gov, either one when you're using either one of those platforms. So here are a few first steps to take into consideration when you're preparing not only just your grant application, but when you're thinking about your DMP. Determine your personal timeline. If you currently have an active NIH award up for renewal or are planning to submit a proposal for the upcoming deadlines, then develop a DMSP. The DMSP should be your first priority, especially if you will be working with collaborators. And as you take time out to set up the appropriate data procedures and agreements, if you need those do not have to be submitted before your grant application, when your grant application is due. But as we always state in the ORSP office, it is better to start things ahead of time than to do things at the 11th hour. Carefully read and monitor the UMC webpage. I have all of this information will be out there. This webinar will be out there. The DMP tool is there. Also, a checklist is available for you. And if you need to contact us directly, you'll have a project manager. You can reach out to me. We're here to make this plan run, make it run as smooth as possible. Familiarize yourself, as I stated before, with the FAIR principles, the data principles that are guiding the NIH policy. Assess your own project needs and your current data management practices against the new policy to see if you're already in compliance. You just need to help with writing the plan, and that's great because you're already basically adhering to the policy. However, you just need to have a plan for your award. Review the campus data, services, and resources that are available for you. I'm currently working with DIS on a list of particular costs that we can add to grant budgets. So so that'll be available on there once I have that from DIS. And just determine your needs for your grant award as it is now, if you have an award, and determine your needs for going forward if you're applying for anything. So that's a good practice to have when you're applying for grants, just overall, assessing your needs and the labor related to data curation and the documentation that you'll need going forward. Now, about preparing your data for sharing. Gather your data and related information. So this is your raw data, process and transform data, documentation, any data tables, figures and visualizations, your methods and protocol, and your code, meaning your data processing and analysis scripts. So prepare all of that information. They have not provided a specific format in which they want this data uploaded or sent into a repository. They are just asking for, I'll provide more information once I have more information, but they're kind of broad on, they haven't really provided a specific naming convention. I am thinking, based on my reading and research, it is based on a particular repository or where you're depositing your data. Verify that your files can be shared publicly. So that would mean removing any copyright or user restrictions, any password protected information, remove any sensitive, of course, information, personally identifiable information. Of course, with human subject data, you want to anonymize all of that information. Mass collection sites or locations of endangered or vulnerable species. You want to make sure that that information is removed. You want to organize your data. Of course, we all have to organize everything. Organize your data and your documents, and especially now, use descriptive and meaningful, consistent file names. Like I said, they're not providing any specifics. They're not giving us like a hard, like you need to name your files this, so that's good. It's a broader term, but you just want to make sure it's organized in a descriptive, meaningful way for when it's deposited and when it's shared. Organize your directories and your folders logically. Choose open file formats over proprietary. For example, save in text, CSV, or rather than Microsoft Word formats. You can also see the Library of Congress recommendations for various file formats, and I'll provide that to you guys. It's provided in the link below, and I'll make sure it's available for you guys as well. Upload your data files to your chosen data repository, and you'll get a permanent identifier for your data set. This concludes my presentation. However, I'm going to loop into the questions section just to let you know what questions go where and who to contact. But if you have any questions, and I'm going to open up the chat, I have it closed right now. If you have any questions, you can send those to sponsorprograms@umc.edu. You can send it to me directly. I'm pretty sure I have communicated with everybody on here at some point in the matter. fclerk@umc.edu, and we'll route any questions that we're unable to answer appropriately, or any questions, and vet those questions out to get you some responses and some clarification, either to research compliance, the information systems department, division, or the Center for Informatics and Analytics, or any others with the appropriate expertise if it's something that I'm unable to provide an answer for you just right away. As far as other questions that I know you got, the burning questions you may have, as far as proposal submissions, your budgeting, unallowable costs, the NIH requirement for your data management and sharing plan, your data sharing and use agreements, you'll contact the Office of Research and Sponsor Programs. For creating your data management and sharing plan, selecting a data repository, managing your data during research projects, publishing and preserving your data research, you'll contact the Office of Research and Sponsor Programs, and also the Division of Information Systems. Regarding your informed consent, data privacy related to the DMSP, and documenting and obtaining IRB approval for DMSP, you'll contact the Human Research Office. Any resources available for meeting your research data needs, or consultations and workshops as far as your data storage and computation, you'll contact the DIS, Division of Information Systems, and you'll also contact CIA to see which of those can help you with your data management, data storing needs, and what's available for you. Any data security and secure information technology systems, identification of architectural requirements, best practices in data security. That'll be a collaborative effort between DIS, CIA, and the Office of Integrity and Compliance. That really concludes my presentation. I want to thank you all for coming, and I'm going to hop into the chat. Give me just a moment to stop this recording, and I will do my best to answer some of your questions. Just a second.